my worldview now, as kung sino man ako, still is anchored on what I learned in UP, specifically speech com.
Hi everyone, I'm Charles Ladia and welcome to Speaking Of, where we have conversations on the process of being and becoming. And for our last episode this season, we will talk about the reason behind Speaking Of, which is the speech communication program at UP Diliman. So I use Speaking Of as a learning resource material for my classes. And for this episode, we will talk with multimedia host and actor and the first summa cum laude of the speech communication program. Please welcome to Speaking Of, Sky Quizon. Hi, Sky.
Hi, Sir Charles. Thank you for having me. I really look forward to, yung mga talks natin ganito. And it's been a while,
Yes.
so I'm excited.
Yes. So, let's go first. Medyo throwback ito, no? Because speech communication was not really your first choice, right? So, let's go back to your high school days first. Paano mo ba pinili yung course of choice mo sa University of the Philippines at paano siya naging speech com?
Well, when I was in high school, yung talagang fourth year, di ba, pumipili ka ng mga anong course na kukunin mo. So I was rank 1. So parang there's this high expectation that either you go into medicine field or engineering. So ako, at that time, parang there's so much pressure na parang, okay, dapat doon ako mapunta. So, ang gusto ko talaga nun was to become a doctor. So, a surgeon, medtech yung plan ko na pre-med. So, I wasn't really eyeing for UP. It was UST for med school. And then, parang, I failed. I failed it. I failed the entrance exam sa UST. Tapos yung UP, pero una lumabas yung UP UPCAT. I passed. Pero yung pagpili ko doon wasn't serious at all. It was just, I was scared actually to take the UPCAT because isa, dalawa, tatlo lang nakakapasa sa amin, sa batch namin, every year doon. Tapos there's so much pressure again na dapat makapasa ako. Paano pag di ako makapasa? Ako yung rank 1. So parang hindi totoo na matalino siya kasi hindi siya nakapasa sa UP, ganyan. But luckily, I passed. But because I wasn't eyeing for UP, I didn't ang nilagay kong first choice campus ko was UP Diliman, extension program in Pampanga. So, ang mga courses lang doon, 3, psychology, business management, and economics. So, business economics. So, ang first choice ko, business economics. So, nandun ako. And then, wait, ano gagawin ko dito? So, parang meron din yung mga nagbabagal na thoughts noon na, di ba kasi pag nag-shift ka or nag-transfer ka ng course, madidelay ka. There's that perspective. Lalo na sa mga ibang universities kasi hindi nakakredit yung ibang mga subjects. Sa atin, GE muna. So when I learned about these things, nung nakapag-tanong-tanong ako sa mga kakilala kong nasa UP na, ganyan, what do I do about it? And then, doon ko na-realize na, okay, pwede akong mag-shift. Pwede akong mag-transfer. So I took up business economics for my first year, but all the subjects that I took were GE subjects. Baka dahil nga hindi ko napasa yung pre-med ko, baka med isn't really the choice or the course for me. So, good thing, I think that's blessing in disguise, even if it was a failure, masked in a blessing. All those times when I was in elementary and high school, yung linya ko was really into speaking, was really into performance. Kasali ako sa mga tula, declamation, extemporaneous speaking contest, debate, sa mga journalism, sa mga campus writing contest, ganyan. So parang, ba't ako umaalis dun sa linya ko? Why was I swayed dun sa pressure na dapat nasa med field or engineering field ako?
Early on, during your stint at UP Pampanga, you really are decided to change or to shift your tracks.
Definitely,
right?
definitely.
Pumasok ba agad na speech com yung gusto mo?
I was a campus journalist. So, radio broadcaster, news writer, etc. So, ang initial mind ko, ang alam ko is mass comm, which is
Yes.
broadcom. In UP, it's the ano mismo college, College of Mass
Mm.
Communication. So the nearest is broadcom. Again, blessing in disguise, pero it masked in failure again. Hindi tumanggap ang broadcom ng transferee. And then, but I already was eyeing for speechcom because I learned about speechcom and broadcom, but I didn't know what were the differences. All I knew was Broadcom dahil dito yung radio broadcasting.
Yes.
That was my idea at that time. But luckily, I was brought to Speechcom. And sa Speechcom, it's human communication, and my line then was media performance. So it was really talking. Tayo nagsasalita. It was reporting, talking about theories,
Yes.
analyzing about human communication in general.
Yes.
So this is what I wanted. I mean, it dawned on me na I'm thankful that with all the failures that I encountered during those times, I was brought to the right course.
Yes. So what was your first impression when you heard a speech communication program is being offered in the university? Ano para sa iyo yung speechcom before you entered the program?
I actually don't know. Ang alam ko lang because nga communication. So parang I didn't know what rhetoric was at that time. I didn't know anything about the theories that we studied. All I knew was because I wanted to go in a communication field, and I was
Okay.
there. Yun.
Okay. So after 4 years of studying speechcom, after 4 years of taking a lot of speech communication classes, what for you now is speech communication?
Wow, still ang hirap nating ilagay sa ano no, sa box definition of what our course is. We have a multidisciplinary discipline kasi 'di ba nag-overlap with psychology, anthropology, we have again mass communication nakapaloob. But if I were put it, it's just it may sound as general as it is, but speech communication is about human communication. I would define it by describing it, 'di ba?
Mm.
The description is we we study about everything that involves human communication. So, yeah, so meron tayong interpersonal instruction, 'di ba yung nahati-hati
Yes.
namin rhetoric and yeah. So yun, anything that has something to do with human communication, it's speech communication.
Okay, so what is your most memorable speech class? And what do you think have you learned from that class that made it memorable?
Eto on top of my head, when you say memorable, I would say it would have to be my last. It would have to be my last semester
Hmm.
because eto na yung time na if back in third year college, second year college, I was doubling my effort to study. Eto na yung moment na triple, quadruple yung efforts ko because I knew meron akong hinahabol na grade in order to become
Yes.
SUMA. Because it only dawned sa akin, parang third year second sem or fourth year first sem na pwede ko siyang ilaban. Na parang, uy, ang GWA mo ngayon is 1.21. So, pwede mo siyang ilaban ng SUMA. So, my class, 133,
Yeah.
argumentation. And then, ang bungad pa sa akin, I remember, in the history of this class, the highest grade given was just 175. And ako noon, shoot, kailangan ko dito at least maka 175 ako para ma-maintain ko yung SUMA standing. Because parang ako, I was doing it with thesis at the same time. So parang,
Yes.
pagod na rin ako with thesis. So parang, it was memorable because I really had to like, triple my game for it. So parang ako, shoot, kaya ko ba ganyan while doing thesis? Although last two classes. So it was the most memorable for me because it was the hardest moments that I really worked.
Paano yung work ethics mo kasi as summa cum laude, it's very difficult to maintain the grades, no? Medyo, I'm sure mataas din yung expectations mo of yourself. Pero meron bang ibang, what do you call this, study habit na meron ka or work ethics na meron ka maybe for those people who also want to run for a laude?
I would say siguro I was quite hard on myself. Parang I was beating myself back then. Meron akong set standard na dapat magawa ko. Parang for example, I'm my worst critic. Parang when it comes to reporting, when it comes to papers, I'm my worst critic. I won't submit for the sake of just submitting. Parang during those times, gusto ko, parang naging kasi force of habit yung excellence when I do it. Parang I want something na nag-aaral ako eh. I want something na may natutunan ako, mailabas ko dito. Parang if people say, uy, ang talino mo, nag-summa cum laude ka, I would say parang mas masipag ako over mas
Madali.
matalino. Kasi I would really like study ahead of time. Hindi ako nagka-cram. Walang papasok sa utak ko pag nag-cram ako. For example, may exam, nagpe-prepare na ako 2 weeks before, meron na akong sa yellow paper, naka-lengthwise na, meron na akong, if may notes ako sa notebook, ililipat ko doon. Kasi parang, there's a way of recollection. Parang nandun na
Yes.
sa notes ko, ilalagay ko ulit sa new paper, sinulat ko. Somehow, meron din, alam ko, doon ko yung sinulat. Alam ko kung asan yon. Kung mga ganun yung klaseng exam. Pag naman reporting or mga theories, ang way ng pag-aaral ko, parang ako nagdi-discuss mag-isa, talagang aloud, para verbally nasasabi ko siya. I really prepare ahead of time. Pag papers, gusto ko at least 5 times nabasa ko siya ulit for proofreading to really see kung may mga errors. So, I think that was my mindset. It was,
Stephen, in 2018, we introduced the new areas of concentration. No? We have the rhetoric and performance.
wala na ako.
Yes, the interpersonal and instructional. If you were given that choice, na pamimiliin ka kung rhetoric and performance or interpersonal and instructional, which do you think is the area of concentration that you will choose and why?
Rhetoric and performance. I believe yung mga tinake kong mga classes were
Yes.
rhetoric and performance. So talagang my line then was really performance and then rhetoric kasi well ako personally doon ako na may leaning, parang doon din ako na, well, I started with Ma'am TP, so siguro inspired by Ma'am TP as well, yung mga theories, history of rhetoric, tapos I took up Art Stud 174, Popular Arts and Culture. And I think you guys are offering Popular Arts and Culture na class ba?
4-2, rhetoric and popular culture.
Exactly. So parang ako, tas ang dami kong nagamit din na theories doon for my thesis. So
Yes.
parang I use Baudrillard. Oh, naalala ko pa. I use Baudrillard. I use hyperreality, simulacra, simulacrum. So parang I'm happy it was tailor fit to now. Kasi ako noon, it was sort of my effort to do it. Parang, okay, ano yung class na gusto kong i-take para magamit ko rin on what I would do in the future, thesis, performance, ganyan. So, yeah, rhetoric and performance.
So,
Gusto ko
talaga
rin digital, ganyan. Digital, di ba may digital na rin? So, sobrang.
Yes, 143, digital communication. So, of course, I also noticed how you really enjoyed writing your thesis. So if you will study one communications phenomenon, if maybe you are graduating right now, would that communication phenomenon that you think you will study for your thesis?
Wow, alam mo, recently lang iniisip ko, siguro magagawa ko to ng thesis. The rise of TikTok ngayon, and for example, TikTok and Kumu, these new social media platforms, how they transformed through time and how they are affecting how they impact the identity of students in the pandemic. I mean, as specific as that. Kasi di ba parang, I mean, generally, of course, hindi lang sa student, pero lagyan natin i-limit natin sa students and during the time of pandemic. Kasi ngayon talaga nag-iba yung function.
Pero ang tanong, Stephen, would these skills and theories help you in real life? What communication skills and theories were useful in your current work right now? Because you're working with different people, with different issues, diba? You're working with kahit sa creation of content and also sa talking to a camera or talking with the production crew. Are these communication skills and theories in speech communication useful?
On my end, I'm so happy that I took speech communication kasi sobrang gamit ko siya. Like for example, sa program ko that I host yung schoolmates, nagagamit ko yung mga theories because I talk about current issues, I talk about politics, I talk about social media. So yung mga na pag-aralan ko, rhetoric, popular arts and culture, argumentation as well kasi debate program siya. So, nagagamit ko yung natutunan ko on how I construct my arguments, nagagamit ko kung paano ko papag-substantiate yung sinasabi kong opinion. So, on my end, it's really helpful. Not to, not to mention yung pagiging, kasi speech com tayo talagang, we're really used to people, sanay tayo
Yes.
makipaghalubilo, ganyan. So, ako, being exposed to people as well, interpersonal, it also helped, parang, I would also understand paano makisama. I mean, as human as it sounds, parang, pero, meron din tayong family com so to understand conflict management, etc. So parang my worldview now as kung sino man ako still is anchored on what I learned in UP, specifically speech com.
But beyond speech, Stephen, what is the most memorable UP experience that you have?
I remember when I was reading my speech, towards the end, no last statement and then padayon mga scholar ng bayan, naiyak na ako. As in, nag-crack yung voice ko when I said padayon mga scholar ng bayan. My voice was cracking. Pagkababa ko, a tear or two dropped in my from my eyes. And from that moment, parang it felt like it was the fruit of all my hard work. It was the fruit of my labor. Parang ito yung culmination lahat ng pinagpaguran ko, lahat ng dinanas ko na, lahat ng iniyak ko, lahat ng pinagpuyatan ko rin, lahat ng pinagpaguran ko. So, it felt like, wow, it's this moment. It was this moment.
Maybe it also brings you back to 4 years before that moment when you were thinking if shifting to the speech communication program was worth it. And I'm sure na medyo may doubt pa kasi di mo sure kung mag-extend ka pa for a few semesters or
Right.
for a year as well. What was your saddest moment when you were studying in UP?
I cried because I heard of people doubting, di naman parang what I heard, parang di naman siya magaling, di naman siya matalino, pinili lang yung mga subjects niya, masipag lang naman siya. Parang they were doubting all my hard work, they were doubting all my, alam mo yun, all those times that I really tried the hardest. Because I know I'm not that, kasi mapapansin mo yun sa class, meron yung matalino naturally, even if they won't really study. I have mild ADHD. It was really hard for me to focus. I would lock myself inside my room a day or two just to finish writing, just to finish studying. Kasi habang nagbabasa ako, mawawala ako. Parang, nakadalawang pages na ako, di ko na alam ano na yung wala ko naiintindihan. So parang,
So, to close our podcast, let's play a short game. It's fast talk. So, I will ask you several questions, tapos no explanation. Kilala kita, gusto mo lagi explain ng mga bagay-bagay. Pero first, most memorable UP class that is not speech.
Art Stud 174.
Jowa or Jiwa?
Jiwa.
Most memorable UP location for you?
Library.
You mean live?
Actually, Ka-Live.
Okay.
Wala explanation, di ba?
Yes,
Okay.
bawal ka
Okay.
mag-explain. Group work or individual work?
Individual.
Most memorable UP food?
Kasaa tapa.
One weakness you have?
Ano ba? Family.
Akads or lakads?
Akads.
Your real life superhero?
My mom.
And one life lesson you learned in UP?
There are things that are out of our control. But as long as you've done your part, you've given your best, it'll be worth it.
And finally, ito hindi to fast question. To wrap up our session, for those people or for those students who are planning to be a speech major or for those people who want to become an scholar ng bayan in the future, what do you think is one tip that you could give that dreamer that's watching this podcast right now?
Well, I hope they get to experience first the real life academe. Hindi yung papasok sila ngayon online class. It's a wonderful experience of a new culture coming from high school. Try to experience everything in UP. experience your first heartbreak. Ano ba? First heartbreak na
Okay, go.
na hindi ka uno. It's a world of all new experiences, and just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. But set your goals. Set your goals. Set your goals.
Yes, thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us. I'm sure that my students and my listeners are learning a lot from this conversation. So thank you very much, Stephen, and thank you very much to everyone who watched the whole season of Speaking of. And see you in our next season. Thank
Wow!
you.
Yay! Thank you, Sir Charles, for having me. Thank you, everyone.